Welcome to the broadcast, Paisley. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy I found you a couple of years ago. You're amazing,
Oh,
and
girl.
you've given me so much hope. So thank you.
I'm so glad, Paisley. Thank you for saying that. I know when we talked before, I was so excited to hear you talk about our organization in that way because that's exactly why we're doing this is to reach women like you, to give you hope and to inspire and to share experiences so that you don't feel alone. So I'm really glad that you found us, man. I'm so happy to have you tonight. Very cool. All right, so we're gonna get rolling. You're actually in Connecticut, right?
I am, and I was just going to say I found you, Texas organization, but I found you when I was in treatment, and I started watching you and tuning in, and it's amazing. I'm sitting here. I'm so grateful to be sitting here talking to you now. I never knew what was happening back then and where I would be, and I'm in Connecticut. Yes.
So cool. I mean, I'm so glad to hear that we reach to the ends of the earth. You know, where people are finding us in various different ways, and like I said, that's the whole point of all of it is to try to make a difference in lives, just like we are tonight. So glad you could be here, Paisley. All right, so I'm looking at my notes here. You were diagnosed in December of 2019, right?
Yes, yes. I was actually diagnosed right before the pandemic hit.
How
So
weird must that have
yeah.
been? I mean, that had to be really rough, right?
It was beyond rough. It was surreal. I mean, if I back up a bit, before December, I was working in Manhattan at the time, and I just remember walking through Grand Central Station. I had a 2-year-old at home at the time, and I was commuting and at a job that just took up a lot of hours. And I had lost my mother while I was pregnant unexpectedly. And
Gosh.
then had this child to move on for, and my husband, and was working and commuting. And then fast forward a couple years later, toddler at home, feeling really kind of tired and run down, and probably the stress from a major loss. So it's my mom was one of my best friends, and just in a little voice in my head had said, Paisley, you're really tired. You're not feeling well. And I remember just trying to put one foot in front of the other in this crowded Grand Central Station and getting on the train. Came home, and it was Thanksgiving week. And then my father had passed away that week. So then that was another thing. I couldn't sleep at night right after Thanksgiving. And I went to distract myself in the middle of the night while my husband and my child were asleep. And I went to sit on the couch downstairs and watch CNN or Housewives or something that would distract me. And I remember leaning on the corner of the couch, and I felt a pain in my right breast. And I put my hand there, and I thought, oh, I must have been wrestling with my toddler. And that's what that pain is from. But then I felt something. And then I knew. I just fell to the floor, and I looked up, and I said, really? And I just knew. And I had the most amazing OBGYN practice at the time, Coastal OBGYN in Stanford. And I called on that weekend, and they picked up the phone. I had their cell phone. And immediately that Monday, I rushed in to do the mammogram. And anybody who's viewing, if you've had that, you're always wondering what if, and thinking, oh, maybe it's nothing, it's nothing. And then they immediately did the ultrasound, and immediately I got fast tracked to get a core needle biopsy.
Right.
Um, so I could pause there, but
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
started.
you know what I find so interesting is something that Mandy said just now when we were chatting was that they say that that usually cancer doesn't hurt, right? You hear that, and in Mandy's case, she felt a pain, and that's when she was able to identify that there was a lump where the pain was, and similar to you, you leaned over and you felt a pain, that kind of instructed you to check out that area and you knew right away. And it's funny because she knew right away too. I find that so interesting that both of you guys were so in tune that you just knew it wasn't just something random. It had to be breast cancer. What do you think about it? Told you that or the moment?
I've always been aware of my body. I had been through miscarriages before, and different things. So I don't know what it was, but I felt it, and it was just, I don't know, something inside me said, oh. And I knew I wasn't very late for my mammogram. I had been on top of them, which everybody should be, and probably even more frequent, maybe. I don't know, we can ask Dr. O'Shaughnessy, but of the timing. But I was about 6 months late. And again, I had a toddler at home. Earlier than that, had gone through breastfeeding, and that year got really busy. You know, you get into the rat race, and I just got a little bit delayed. And thank God, or whatever you believe in, I went in. And then it was just fast track from there. And I'll share what you want me to share, but I'll follow the lead.
Yeah, no, you're good. So you had that. It was so cool that you were able to reach your OBGYN over the weekend. Who the heck has that kind of connection? That's pretty cool. And that you
No,
could go in first thing Monday like that. That's such a blessing, right?
No, I know that I'm lucky for that, for sure, and that support. And I feel for the people who don't have those resources, and we have to do a lot more to give to people who don't. But I was lucky, and I went in. I'm a producer by trade, and I was just focused on getting something done. What do I need to do next? And then I was rushed over to the next hospital to get the core needle biopsy. And I was alone at the time. And I, those are those moments when you kind of want your mom with you or your dad with you. And at that point,
totally. Yeah.
I had nobody. And I'm lying on the table, and they do that, and they play music. Another reason I'm connected to you. I'm always asking people to put music on to get me through. And she just said at the moment, the radiologist, I don't like the look of this. Let's wait for the results. But if it does come back benign, then I still want you to get it removed. And then I remember that night, that waiting. Oh, I'm waiting for these results. I'm waiting for these results. And I went to the Home Depot with my husband and my son. My husband knew what was going on. And then that radiologist had called me, or maybe that wasn't that night. Maybe it was a couple of days later. And at that time, when she had said, actually, let me back up. When she had said, I don't like the look of this, I think you should get it removed, I immediately found an oncology surgeon. And she said, well, why don't you get your films over to me? And I went down to the hospital to ask for copies of them before those results were even back in. And then I thought, oh, let me just walk down to the lab and ask if they're ready. Because the doctor's office had said, oh, sometimes even though we're in the same town, it's easier if you just FedEx them overnight or something, it would get there faster. And at that moment, I guess my results were coming in when she heard my name. And I said something like, oh, don't tell me, I don't know, just, let's send it over. And she got up, and I said, well, what does it say? And she ran to the back, and she came out with the head of the lab, and he said, what are you doing here? What are you asking for? And I said, well, I'm just asking for my films. And obviously I'm nervous. And he said, has anybody told you have cancer?
Oh my God,
and I could
no.
have read that one way or the other. Was he saying, did anyone tell you, or do you know? And then I just ran out of there. I didn't know what to do. And I got myself home. And as things progressed, and results came in, I started to get other opinions lined up if I needed them. And when I sat down with a really amazing breast surgeon who is related to an oncology surgeon, she was explaining to me all the different types of breast cancer. And never in a million years did I know. I thought there was one breast cancer. And she went through. And then soon after that, I found out not only was I triple negative, but I was also BRCA1 positive.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a good point, Paisley, is that we have a lot of people watching right now. This might be their first time to ever even hear triple negative breast cancer because, unless you go through it, you just kind of think there's one type of breast cancer, but there's all these different, stages and substages and hormone receptor this or receptor that. People just don't realize. And honestly, when people are diagnosed with something other than triple negative breast cancer, a lot of times they don't know they're HER2 positive or PR positive or ER positive. They just kind of are in a lump. They just kind of lump that all together, and they don't necessarily tell you those details. But with triple negative breast cancer, they tell you it's rare, it's aggressive, and it's something to pay attention to, right?
And we all run to Dr. Google, right? So I'm immediately doing that. What is this? Because if you've experienced this, when you're in the doctor's office, it's almost, the world stops and your mind is spinning, and you don't remember. Hopefully you have someone there to write things down for you. But I went home and I was Googling and calling. I have the most amazing friendships, and asking questions. And everything you read is, this is the most aggressive, deadly breast cancer. And I'll tell you what I found out at the time was, there wasn't a lot of knowledge of how you could deal with it compared to the hormone positive. And because I was BRCA1 on top of that. So it was scary for me. I hate to use that word, but it was. And then I chose the oncologist who said, you have a lot of life to live. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And we're going to throw everything at this. And I said, I want you on my team. And that's when I started to expand my team.
Yeah. And it's so important. That's another thing is,
Sorry, I'm swearing.
no, you're fine. Is to make sure that you do have a good team that you trust and you feel confident in, and building that team. It's something that people maybe don't think about. Is it's like, oh, you're diagnosed, you just have this doctor, but you have to think of it as a team. All these people are going to be working together for the betterment of your health, and to make sure that you get through this, right? And so you built yourself a solid team, and we're ready to march in there and get her done.
Yes. And at first they had thought, oh, it's little, or maybe we'll do a lumpectomy. But as I got more data, the more we realized we had to change the course, right? So as I found out, I was not only triple negative, but it was BRCA1. And also my paternal grandmother had passed from breast cancer. So the family history, everything was just, okay, we can't just start with a lumpectomy. We need to do neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And at the time, what was available to me, and I had also gotten a second opinion from a different hospital, was ACT, so adriamycin, cytoxin, right, and Taxol.
That's right. Yeah.
And then there were, as I said, they were still trying to figure out how to really treat triple negative. And science is amazing. Every week, every day, look out for something new. And I had to hold on to hope for that. So carboplatin at the time I could add in. So then I added in carboplatin. But at that time, they hadn't even released immunotherapy as an additional way of treating triple negative breast cancer. So that's what I had available to me, and I did it all. But I started chemo on Christmas Eve. And, you imagine I'm going to have my friends or my family sitting with me. I was literally planning my father's arrangements from the chemo chair and trying to figure that stuff out. And then the pandemic hit. And then I was not alone because I had amazing doctors and nurses, but I didn't have, first of all, I didn't have my mom and my dad, but I didn't have people who could be with me in the hospital. So I went through that treatment. And then there became a time during COVID where my counts got really low. I had to miss chemo. And then it was the start of the pandemic, right? So we didn't know a lot about it. And I didn't know if I was more scared of dying from cancer or more scared of dying from COVID, or the combination of the two at that time. So it was intense. And I ended up, trying to be my own best advocate, because everybody was shell-shocked by what was going on at the time. And I had to take shots during one of my treatments to get my counts up. And so I figured a way to get the shots delivered to my home. And my husband was giving the shots to me at our kitchen table so that I wouldn't have to go exposed to illness.
I want to make sure that we keep people, no pun intended, abreast of some of these things that we're mentioning. So one thing I want to be sure and mention is the BRCA1 is a gene that is tied back directly to breast cancer, ovarian cancer. It has some other cancers, I believe, tied to it, but primarily breast and ovarian cancer. And so knowing that you have that gene, you know that it tells you that you're at higher risk for ovarian cancer and some other cancers, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. So then I did a lot of research on my own, as well as some amazing nonprofit organizations I was able to tap into to get education in addition to my doctors. And I decided from that moment forward, okay, I'm going to get a hysterectomy. And I'm going to do a bilateral mastectomy. And I hadn't decided on reconstruction or not yet. So I'll pause just to say, we knew we had to do the chemo first. And then I had to do the surgery. And because of the pandemic, I didn't know if I'd be able to get a double mastectomy. But because I was at risk, we really had to push for that. And then I had to beg for also, please double mastectomy. So that went through. Luckily, I decided to go flat because I wanted to do the hysterectomy. And at that time, some doctors had said to me, Paisley, why don't you deal with your known cancer right now? Push that off until later. And I thought, I can't, I want to squeeze this in, even if I have to do radiation. So I did the double mastectomy after all of the chemo. And again, alone in the hospital. That was COVID. You couldn't have anybody with you. And then I recovered from that. I jokingly say, but not funny, squeezed in I did the radiation and then squeezed in the hysterectomy, or vice versa. But I had to just line it all up to keep going. And at that time, I was also seeing what trials were available to me, because I did not get a clear response at the time of my surgery. So backing up, I finished the chemo. You hope that that's eradicated, like gotten rid of all the cancer, went in and did my surgery. And when I woke up, I heard my sentinel nodes were clear, and I was celebrating that on the drug and the high of coming through surgery. And then a few weeks later, my path report came back and there was some residual disease still.
Right, and just to touch on that, so for those who aren't familiar, whenever you have a double mastectomy, a lumpectomy, or in any way you're removing some form of cancer, what they want to do is get what they call clear margins. And what that means is the area that they take out from, what is left behind, they check that area to make sure that there's no, to your point, residual cancer on those quote margins. And so what you're saying right now is you did not get clear margins. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did not. Well, no, they got clear margins actually when they got it out, but there was some residual disease, as well as in one small lymph node, there was 6 millimeters of cancer, and it wasn't my sentinel node, it was an auxiliary node. Sorry.
Wow. No, you're good.
Then I knew I had more work to do, right? That's what I call it. Okay, we got to do more work.
Yeah.
And at that time, science again, right? There were more trials becoming available. People were talking about other drugs, PARP inhibitors that could be used. So I went on, I did the radiation, the hysterectomy. I stayed flat. I didn't want to deal with another surgery or reconstruction, which was a really big decision. So a lot of things going on, but I got through it all with the support of amazing friends and family and doctors. And then as soon as I was done with that, by the graces of God and what you believe in, other things became available to me. And then I was able to go on Xeloda, which was a chemo pill because of the residual disease, that had some really good results in studies and improved my chances of survival. And I saved this. My husband taped this throughout our house. And it was a quote from a doctor, and he put it on every mirror at one point so I could get some inspiration. And it said, there's a very good chance you are cured based on your response to chemo, right? Even though I had some residual disease, it really attacked what was in there, and your successful surgery. And Xeloda has been proven to significantly improve survival rate in triple negative patients. So I was holding on to anything I could get to be here and find that inspiration. So I took that next drug, which I was on for 6 months, and I tolerated it, but not as well. I started to get aura migraines, which then I had to go and get a brain scan, just to see if maybe
something must have
something
been scary, right?
was really scary.
Yeah.
And then you have coping mechanisms to relax yourself. Again, I went back to the music, and I asked them to play music while I was in the tube with the face shield on, and I said, put James Taylor on, because it reminded me of my dad. Think it'd be relaxing. And all of a sudden it's Elvis Presley instead, with I'm caught in a trap, I can't walk. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a song to play while I'm in here. But you find the humor.
Right. So funny. I love that you had music, and music was so important to you during that time. And I talk to so many people who connect with music, and especially during traumatic times like this. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. I want to go back. We were talking a little bit about your blood cell counts and having the shots and stuff like that. So just so that people understand, when she was talking about her counts were low, she's talking about her white blood cell counts. Uh, Chemo can cause your kills white blood cells, because white blood cells are fast dividing cells, and so chemo kills white blood cells, and so therefore they have to continually check your white blood cell counts throughout treatment, because if they get really low and then you do treatment again, it's going to get even lower. That makes it where you're a lot more susceptible to illness. So it's especially scary to have low white blood cell count in COVID, when we didn't know what was happening, when it first started, getting out there. It was like very, very scary times. And, there was this fear behind COVID. And then you have white blood cell counts that are low, and then COVID is out there. I can only imagine how terrifying that must have been. And then the shot I wanted to mention was likely the Neulasta shot, right? And the Neulasta shot, go ahead.
No, there's for the first chemo treatment I did, it was Neulasta, which was an on-body injector. It almost felt like you're flicked by a rubber bands, and it gives you the shot automatically. And then the next round of chemo, when I went and did my Taxol and carboplatin, they were GARCIA or Neupogen shots. So there was a difference in them, but having the same effect, building back
So
your white blood cell count.
your wife, okay, cool. I hadn't heard of that one, and like, I feel like I'm so old whenever I talk about going through triple negative breast cancer, because it's been 13 years since I finished. In 8 days it'll be 13 years since I finished treatment.
Amazing. See, that's
So
my hope.
yeah, it's crazy. But things have changed. Like you talk about your cool like rubber band snap injection that was automated. I had to
Yeah.
actually physically get in the car, drive back to the hospital like 2 days later, and get an injection in my stomach of
Wow.
Neulasta. But now it's changed so much where you get like you said, like a little strap on your arm or whatever, or wherever it is, and it automatically injects you with the Neulasta to help keep your white blood cell count up,
Right.
which is so important when you're going through breast cancer, and especially during the times of COVID. If you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit more about what that was like when you were like, as soon as COVID hit and you're like in treatment. I just want to hear where your mind was at that moment in time. I just can't even imagine.
I mean, it was surreal. I mean, you're dealing with the hardest news in your life, and and I was also dealing with death in my family. I thought, now this is it. It literally looked like everything just started to move slowly around, and it did. The road shut down. We would be driving to the hospital, and nobody's around. And we wouldn't even go to the grocery store because of my health, and we were having things delivered, and we were washing things off, and just making sure, not only because I didn't want to get COVID, but I didn't want to miss my treatment. And when you're in that situation and other people aren't, and they're trying to move on with their life, it's hard. You really start to learn, you're sitting in it, and you want to educate people and say, listen, if you might not be taking these safe practices for yourself, but there's other people who can be affected by your actions. So that was
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you a lot more susceptible, and it's true. I remember, I mean, even for me, because like we're saying, we didn't really know what COVID was about. We were all very scared. I didn't know if, being someone who'd gone through chemo, if I still had some immunity issues from that. I wasn't sure. I have asthma. Like, there's all this stuff, and you worry, like the other people's actions are going to affect you, or what's going to happen. And I just can only imagine how scary that would be. And I was doing the exact same things as you were, and I wasn't even in treatment. I can only imagine
yeah.
how that must have felt. How what did your doctors tell you at that time? Were they like, we're still going to keep you coming in for your treatment, there's nothing that's going to stop that?
Oh my gosh. Well, keep in mind, I literally started chemo Christmas Eve, and then stuff started happening with COVID like a month after that. So it was new to all of us and our medical community. We hadn't seen that. And it was, there were times when we didn't know if a facility would shut down. as I said, I didn't know if my surgery would be scheduled. You know, you're going through all of those decisions, but you have to keep holding on to hope and pushing forward and doing whatever you can. And they did an amazing job of making sure people got through the system and could get done, you know, what needed to get done. So you're getting your tests before you're going in to the hospital. Remember driving up in
Oh
those
yeah.
lines,
Yep.
getting those tests and
Yep.
making sure. But also I was so terrified of just going in for surgery. Even when I started, I forgot to mention I had a port. I had never had surgery in my life other than my C-section for my son. And you know, I've never had that. So to give hope to anybody, if I could get through it, you know, I was terrified. Anybody can. And each step you take is a step ahead, right? And holding on to that and looking back and looking at how resilient we can be, right? And how strong we are, and we don't realize that, and really focusing on what matters. I mean, it's a life shift. And as odd as it may seem, I'm grateful for it, and easy for me to say because I'm sitting here. But I've been open to so many amazing things, even through this difficult experience, that I'm really grateful for.
And so with going through this during COVID, did you ever miss anything due to COVID?
Mistreatment, you mean?
Yeah, treatments or surgeries or any doctor's appointments
Things
related to
got
your journey?
No, I mean, luckily enough, no, I mean, things got shifted a little bit at times, but I was able to get everything done. But there was always that emotional journey when you didn't know if something would get shifted or canceled or how you would be. And same thing when my counts were really low. I did miss a few treatments because I just couldn't go in for them because of my immune system.
Right,
Um,
right. Your white blood cell count was too low and you
yeah.
had to
And
skip.
then Yes, and then I tried to apply for, you know, I was looking out for trials because again, at that point, we didn't know, was there anything new? When I finished the Zolota, that's when the PARP inhibitor became available. So then I went and did a year of the PARP inhibitor.
So, were
Um,
your doctors guiding you? I know that you were very in tune with anything that was coming out. It sounds like you were constantly researching. But
on,
were you like, if Keytruda came out or any new stuff, were you just going back to your doctor and saying, "Hey, does it make sense for me to do this?" Or how did you
I did. So
were they guiding you the whole way? Uh-huh.
I did a lot of research, and then one of my husband's best friends had asked if he could help and do research with me. And I mean, it was amazing. So again, I talked about expanding your team, so that he became part of my team. And then I got, because of COVID, you know, it was interesting. I realized people couldn't go in person to doctors, so they were doing telehealth. So I called MD Anderson and I said, listen, you have an integrated oncologist there, and he's written this book that I'm really interested in. Can I get in there from remote? And then certain hospitals were able to see me from remote, even though I didn't live in the town. So I was able to get a second opinion, because triple negative, again, it's there's a lot of research going into it. So I was really lucky that those doctors took me from remote, really fortunate that I had the insurance to cover that, and I got the second opinion. And so I had people, and even nonprofits, I could look up online and see what trials were available, things like that. So I had a lot of different things going on. And then my doctors did also, we had moved at the time. We also got displaced from our home because of a flood. So
Oh
it was like
gosh, man,
it
it's like,
happened. So we
geez,
were,
so much happening at
yeah.
once.
So we were taken in by amazing angels who we love forever, who let us move into a part of their home that was secluded, so we could stay isolated. And then at that time, we decided to drive an RV out to Colorado, where my father-in-law was, and hunker down with him because we wanted my son to see his only living grandparents. And from there, I got a whole new set of doctors at UC Health in Colorado. And they had said to me, look, Lynparza has just been approved. MD Anderson had told me that too. And by the timing, I was able to start the Lynparza. So now I just finished that last August, and in this past December hit my 3-year mark. So when you're triple negative, you pray to get to 3 years, but you really pray to get to 5 is what I'm hearing. And so every day I just try to keep looking forward and pray I don't have a recurrence. I sadly lost a dear friend I made through this journey, who ended up having inflammatory breast cancer on top of triple negative.
Gosh, that's
And
the worst of the worst right there. Those who aren't available or who aren't familiar, like we're saying, triple negative breast cancer is a rare and aggressive form of breast cancer. Only affects between 10 to 20% of those diagnosed, and then inflammatory breast cancer is possibly even worse, and it's actually visible usually, so you can actually see it on your breast. And I have a friend who lost a dear friend to inflammatory breast cancer, and it's not pretty. I saw photos what that was like, and just awful.
the signs, they talk about a dimpled orange skin and,
Yes.
again, really being aware of your body and the signs and doing the research. But I have survivor's guilt a bit also from that, miss her dearly. And, I made some of the best friends of my life through this journey. And some of them I had never even met in person, because we met through a Facebook group, right, on this journey, and we became so close. And to have that loss, I have survivor's guilt, because here science progresses, it progresses as we go. And I'm just saying this to anybody who's watching, because I never want to influence fear. Every day there are new treatments, and because of things you're doing, April, and the fundraising and the research that goes into it, new things come and become available. So, that's modern medicine. And then on top of that, I did also read Radical Remission. So I took a little bit of the other side, of practice into my life, which I've really grown from. And Radical Remission is a book that goes over different ways that people have beat the odds and beat stage 4 cancer, and by incorporating non-medical practices into their life. So I combined the two as I got further in my journey, and I'm forever changed from that too.
It's so cool. That is just a really, really great, inspiring story, Paisley. I love that. And your positive attitude too. And like, I mean, man, you do not mess around. Like you are on this, like, you know, white on rice, as they say. I mean, it's just, so awesome how you threw yourself into it, because knowledge truly is power. It really is.
I always say knowledge is power, power leads to action, and action leads to success. So that's been my kind of mantra during this, whether I've learned it from somewhere else or it all connected together. That's what I had to hold on to. And I
Yeah.
think, everybody's story is different, right? I was told that from the beginning, and it stuck with me to not see a story that might have scared me and think that that's going to be my own. Um, all the data is different for everybody, and you're your own person. So it's what we can learn and take from that and turn that into action, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm sitting here looking at some of my notes about when we're going to talk tonight, and I realized I don't think we ever actually talked about what they staged you at. And you were staged at stage 2, correct?
Yeah, stage 2B, and I think it got from an A to a B, but yeah, stage 2B.
And you were diagnosed at age 45, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, I guess 3 years ago. So yes, 45.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it was grade 3.
Got you. Yeah. And I just like to point that out because another thing about triple negative breast cancer is that it does most of the time affect younger women, those that are under 50 years old. So it's important to point that out. And just again, like we're talking about with your friend who had inflammatory and triple negative breast cancer, just be familiar with your body. Watch out for any changes, whether it's something you can feel or something that you can see, and be sure and report that to your doctor. It's so important. I mean, early detection, I know that people talk about it all the time, but it truly, truly is key. If you catch it early, then your chances of survival are so much greater.
Such an important message. Yes.
Yeah. And I have also that I know that you mentioned, I wanted to ask you about this, that you had a double mastectomy and you decided to go flat. Are you going to stay flat? Is that your plan?
Yes, ma'am. So,
Part of the
I
flat
mean,
crew, girl. You and
we
me. Woo!
are. I mean, yeah, flat and proud. It's wild. I will tell you this. I didn't make my decision until 1 to 2 weeks before surgery, and it was a really big decision. My oncology surgeon, she called me several times right before we went in to make sure I was confident in my decision. And, you know, it's becoming more and more known and more of an elective practice. I did meet with plastic surgeons. I had a lot of friends talking with me, oh, you're so lucky you get to get new boobs. And it's, you know, when you're in this situation, you're not really thinking about it that way, but, you know, for a moment you consider it. But knowing I had other surgeries because I was BRCA, I didn't want to have complications also because it was during COVID, didn't want to have infections or anything that delayed radiation or my hysterectomy. And I talked at length with my husband about it, and he was the most supportive anybody could have been. And I just thought, what do I care more about? And for me, it was, I want to be here. So what I did was I created a mood board because I knew I was going to wake up in the hospital bed alone because it was COVID. And I didn't want to have an anxiety attack wondering not only is it cancer, but what's happening. And so I made this mood board, and I thought, wow, because I was large breasted before. And I thought, oh, I can wear all these things I never got to wear before. So I hung up on my dresser in my room that I would come home at home and recover in, a bathing suit and a blouse and a dress I could look forward to wearing. And then I kept on my phone this whole mood board that I could scroll through. And I did the same when I was bald, because I was bald during surgery. I had hair loss, lost my eyebrows, my eyelashes, everything. And I started to save all these little pixie cut, fun, like photographs of people who didn't necessarily lose their hair because of cancer, or even people who have alopecia and are proud because they are, and the, you know, what people do. So I just saved all these inspirational pictures so that when I woke up, I could look at them and think about it differently and shift that vision of myself. And so that really helped for what it's worth.
It's really
And then,
brilliant, Paisley.
yeah,
It's so brilliant, and I'm so glad you're sharing this because I think this is something others can latch onto and do something similar to pull inspiration from something like
no,
that.
it's
It's really
it's helpful.
smart.
And there are moments when I see people and I think, oh, but I look at my son and it's just not worth it, you know, for other people, I don't, you know, people do what they choose, but I didn't want to have to worry about one more thing. Um, and then I couldn't look at myself for a while, and my breast surgeon was out and her partner was covering. And she did the nicest thing for me. And I went into the office and she said, have you looked in the mirror yet? And I said, no. And she pulled out a hand mirror and she took my hand. It was like this bigger hand mirror though. And she said, come with me. And she positioned me, and she looked with me. And forever, I'll be grateful for her for doing that with me. Um, and I just, yeah, so this is the new me. It's the new normal. My hair came back. It's just hair. But I surprised myself because when I went bald, I thought I had a box of wigs. I thought I'd wear them. I had hot flashes. I would be out, you know, once I finally got to do an errand, I'd just rip it off.
Right.
This is, and I went, and I just, you know, this is it. I had the foobs they give you the knitted knockers, all of these things. You try it. I remember once I was having to drive to an appointment, and then they were up here because of the seatbelts and
No.
stuff. I mean, it's I just thought
That's
throw
like
them out, but I didn't
comedy.
throw them
That's
out the
like
window.
yeah, that's like sitcom material right there.
Yeah,
Seriously.
exactly. I mean, and then so you find things to laugh at during this. You have
Yeah.
to. Laughter is medicine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's
I think you're super brave, and I mean, you know, the thing is, like you're saying, you know, the concept of not having reconstruction, you know, it's not, you know, I know a lot more people who have had reconstruction than haven't, and you know, it is a very personal decision. I think you and I came to the conclusion for a lot of the same reasons. You know, I didn't want any further surgeries like that weren't medically necessary. Like they weren't
no
going to
way.
help. They weren't going to. The reconstruction wasn't going to help me uh, prevent breast cancer. You know, I worried that it might make it harder to find breast cancer. I thought things like that, and I just was like,
Me
I don't
too.
want any further turmoil. I've already been through so much. I just want to focus on living. That was my goal. You know what I mean?
Me too.
And I didn't get all the phone calls you did. I guess whenever I made the decision, it was like it was the same week that I found out I had breast cancer. I was like, I want a double mastectomy and I don't want reconstruction. I'm done. I'm ready to just plow forward.
And you rock
And
a tank top on stage. I mean, it's amazing. I
thank
think the
you.
more people see people like us and see that that's normal and that's a
Right.
decision for survival, we can be beautiful that way,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's
It's not all about the boobs, as they say. you
not all
know,
about the food,
it's so many people, fixate on that. And, I like to remind people it's not about saving breasts, it's about saving lives. That's what it
Yes,
boils down to. You know what I mean? And that's where we're at. Now I've got a bunch of people commenting in here that I
yeah, I
haven't
love
read
that.
yet, so we gotta get on this here.
Yeah, let's do it.
You're actually getting a little extra time, Paisley, because Courtney wasn't able to join tonight, so
Okay.
we're actually letting you go a little longer, which is cool. Your story is really inspirational, so I'm glad to have you on. And let me scroll back through here real quick
And
and
I'm an
find.
open book for questions. I'll answer anything.
Well, first of all, Jennifer Goliner, is that right? She says, "My girl P, love you."
I
She's in
love
the
you.
house watching. She says she's so proud of you and that you are her true hero.
Oh
Very
my gosh.
cool. Janine Cumming, one of our survivor sisters, is watching right now. She says, "Yes, I felt pain as well. I knew it was cancer before they told me. I just am so fascinated by that. I think with me, it was different because I had fibroid cysts for many years, so they were always just cysts. So I just expected it was just going to be another cyst. Like I didn't really think it was anything else. Kent McCaffrey says, "Love you, sis."
My brother,
Hey,
he was
Jacqueline,
delivering groceries during COVID to us.
you
Yeah,
rock,
thank you.
Kent. Dude, he helped out. It sounds like so cool. Jacqueline Pine says, "I'm a 3-year survivor of triple negative cancer, and I caught mine early." Jacqueline, good job, dude. Way to go, man. That is awesome. We'll have to get in touch with you. She's gonna have to be on our show next year. Jennifer says, "Gloria and I got you." And Kimberly Beaver says, "I'm so glad that you did catch it early." Um, Dr. Mary Bryan is the best surgeon. There's going to be a newly diagnosed person on the panel next. That's right. Yep. Coming up next is Kim Lusk, who is newly diagnosed. Jennifer says, "Jason is amazing." And says, "My beautiful girl." Franny says, "I applaud you for going flat. Kind of wish I had. Sorry, I'm going to try to read this. It's too funny. Hate the boob sweat. Still need a bra." I see, I was different from you, Paisley, and probably many others. I was very small chested. And so
Oh,
I never got to experience the boob sweat or anything like that. So I felt like it wasn't that big of a jump for me. It was a bigger jump than I thought it would be, because flat is flat. I mean, you are flat.
oh my gosh.
When I thought I didn't have boobs, I didn't know that I actually had something, but it was good for me. And I wanted to mention to you, Paisley, you were talking about the first time you looked at your chest. I remember my doctors, or I read online or something, that they recommended that you don't like look at a full mirror, like walk in and see it that way for the first time. And they recommended that you look down to see it like
Hmm.
that way first. So it would be because if you think about looking down, uh, you're not seeing everything all at once. You're kind of
Yeah,
absorbing it from that angle, right?
that makes sense.
And
That
so
makes
I waited a long time. It was several weeks. And like I had other people changing out the dressing on
right.
everything and closing my eyes and just wasn't ready. And when the day finally came to look at my chest, I'm just sharing this. I want to tell you because now we're buds here, and then
Yes.
just to share with everyone else here too. I was there with my best friend, and I remember looking down and saying, "I look like a freak," and she's like, "No, you look like someone who doesn't have cancer."
Right.
And look, I'm making my own self cry on this show.
Oh,
Um, but that has really stuck with me, because that is what it's about.
yeah.
It's about making sure that you survive and that you get through cancer,
Do what you
you know?
choose. And
Yeah.
speaking of looking down and looking at your chest, another story of hope is that during COVID, but the cancer treatment when I had radiation before I was going in for my hysterectomy, that's what it is. I had to squeeze in the hysterectomy before I started the Xylota. Um, I was peeling and burned so raw. I mean, not to get graphic, but it was you know, and it's okay. Like I'll deal with like a really bad peeling sunburn, but the nurse from the radiation oncology department at Memorial Sloan Kettering in Westchester came to my house, to my backyard, to dress me before I went in for my hysterectomy with gauze and Silvadene and all the stuff to heal me, because I was in so much pain and I was bleeding. I was raw. And there's my husband in the backyard with my flat, you know, topless, radiated, healing chest, holding the umbrella, the lounge chair umbrella over me so the neighbors wouldn't see me sitting naked outside, because we wouldn't let the nurse in our house because of COVID.
Right, right.
I mean, what an image. And I thought, oh, if the neighbors could see me, which they probably did, but you did what you had to do, you know, and this nurse to come to my house and do that, because I was sobbing in pain before I had to go into my next surgery, was like incredible.
Yeah, I mean, what a blessing. You were just surrounded by so many amazing blessings. So lucky. What a story. And by the way, you're getting all kinds of hearts and love and everything
Aw.
right now. People are going crazy with the buttons down there. Vicky wants to tell you that she loves you. She was the triple negative breast cancer survivor who was on the show before the power went out 3 weeks
Oh,
ago.
hi,
So
Vicky.
she says she loves you.
Oh,
Jennifer
we should
says,
connect.
yeah, you guys should totally. Jennifer says, P, I feel lucky to be in your life.
Oh, I'm so blessed. I love you.
Kimberly says, so thankful for your life and the help and hope you are giving so many others.
3 years, 3 years. Let's make it to 13 and beyond, like our host, right? So I used to say I would collect people like you and put you in my pocket, because 13 years, you know, you hear triple negative and you're like, please, please let me get there. And so here we are. And to my friend Jackie, who just had brain surgery and was dealing with triple negative, and we went through this together. She's a nurse and we met online, and I love her. And I'm hoping she tuned in. But she's in treatment right now for that and doing really well, really well. And she's going to keep doing well, because every day there's new treatment that helps us. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's awesome. That's so awesome. I got to tell you again, I think Jennifer is saying that you are beautiful inside and out. And um, Vicky, the person who was our triple negative breast cancer survivor on the last broadcast, she says, Paisley, you are an inspiration. How are you now? She says.
you know, it's a really great question. I won't sugarcoat it. We all have ups and downs, right? But I'm changed forever, and I'm changed for the better. My hardest part has been acclimating back to the new normal of work. When you go through something like this and you're surrounded by people, you know, you never know anyone else's story, and everybody goes through their own something. But I'm trying to hold on to I'm going to cry, all of the lessons I learned during this, so I don't let them go, because you get back into that rat race. And you know, I just don't want to let myself down. I don't want to relapse. I don't want to go back to that person that was walking through Grand Central Station wondering if I was sick, if that makes sense.
It
And
absolutely does. Yeah.
so that's,
You,
but I'm doing really well. So like literally, my doctors don't scan me right now, and they don't test my blood the way it was tested all the time, which does give me anxiety, because I want that data all the time. But the statistics, at least at the hospitals I'm at, they say it won't change the outcome if you find a symptom. So I just have to be hyper aware of my body right now. I have to know when to say no if I'm pushing myself too hard, because it's a marathon, right? It's not a race. So I'm only just hit 3 years. And I've got to remind myself, and even people at work, I have to remind them, like, I can't overly push myself. My immune system's still coming back. I will tell you, we only just started to put my son in school, and we've been really sick for the past many months, probably because our immune system is getting used to all of these germs, right? Myself and my son included. And he, knock wood, you know, he didn't go through what I went through. So there's that. But I'm rebuilding now. I'm in the rebuilding phase, and I should say the reminding phase, reminding myself everything that I learned. And Yeah, so that's how it's going. I need to start exercising. I know Dr. Joyce O'Shaughnessy says that's the main thing, and I hear it all the time. If you at least exercise a half hour a day, I will tell you, I haven't been doing that, and I've got to get that strength up. Some of the treatment isn't always that great on your heart. I also have a heart history in my family, so the next thing I have to do is exercise. So
I
yes,
highly recommend just walking 30 minutes a day if you're able to
yes,
fit that in, and maybe it won't be too strenuous and you're able to kind of do that. And also, there's something about being outside. I don't know what the temperature is like there in Connecticut. I know this summer in Texas it's
we just
insane.
had snow.
But see
Yeah.
that's so messed up. I'm like,
That's
what?
okay. That's
But
okay. I go to the beach. The beach is my healing place. I also work
yeah.
with a healer named Alita St. James, and she was with me through all my surgeries, and we meditate together. And the hospitals let me have her on FaceTime while I was getting the anesthesia. So, I mean, I had never done that before, never meditated in my life, changed my life. So I keep those practices today, and hopefully it's helping.
I mean, I think the takeaway is just to, take care of yourself and love your body and
Yeah.
put yourself first. It's easy to get in the rat race like you talked about, where you just kind of get carried away and hectic and busy and you don't put yourself first. I struggle with that too, Paisley, all the time, and I've gotten better about it this year. I've really tried to focus. Got a pinched nerve back in December that was kind of another wake up call for me to be like, hey, April, get your crap together. You got to stay healthy, both mentally and physically. And taking care of myself physically does help so much with your mental health as well. It really, really does. And I've been trying to walk as often as I can or be outside as often as I can. And that seems to be something that helps me a lot. But yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's a lot of work, and I read about supplements, what to take, what not to take. You all have to consult with your doctors. I have a functional medicine doctor, and I'm really making sure my vitamin D stays at the level it needs to be. Um, but it is a lot of work. It's practice. It's a practice, right?
Yeah, totally. Are you do you take vitamin D right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
I don't recall the connection with that. I'll have to ask Dr. O tonight. I forget what the connection is with that.
They
Uh,
do say low levels are associated with an increased,
risk.
risk, but
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
and I
Um,
am in menopause. I was thrown into menopause, so I'm living, breathing through menopause
wow.
before
So,
50.
are they expecting you to come out, or they think you're permanently in it?
No, because I had a full hysterectomy, so
Oh,
not possible. I joke and
yeah.
say I'm the bionic woman now. You know, but yeah, so I won't, and I've survived the menopause, which, I did stick my head in the freezer a few times, but I'll take that over cancer, so
Well, we're in menopause together. I came out of it a little bit after chemo. I wasn't BRCA1, so I still have everything, but I ended up going into early menopause a few years later, and so I'm doing really good from it, and I'm not having any side effects anymore. So you can lean on me if you need to talk about it. I've been through it before too, so
yeah.
we can high five each other.
Yes,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, awesome, girl, man. This has been really great, and I want you to definitely, keep me posted on how you're doing. And our Survivors Rock, a breast cancer contingent community, our Facebook group. If any of you out there are watching right now, are breast cancer survivor, either triple negative breast cancer survivor, or any kind of breast cancer survivor, I'd love you to join our group, Survivors Rock, a breast cancer contingent community. Obviously, we all lift each other up, we share each other's experiences, and just help each other through this. And Paisley, so happy to have you tonight. I'm so glad you were feeling better and it worked out. The gods were with us on this one to get you here this evening and be able
Amazing,
to have
April.
you. Yeah.
Thank you
And
for having me.
absolutely. And your interview will be up on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. So more people will get an opportunity to be inspired by your story. So I thank you so much for joining, Paisley. I hope you'll hang out and watch the next two guests. We're going to have Kim coming up next, a
I
newly
wouldn't miss
diagnosed
it.
person,
Vicky,
and
hi,
Dr.
Vicky.
O too. You got to make sure if you have any questions, ping
I
me and
have
we'll get them in there.
questions for
Okay.
her, so I'm going to join back in it. And thank you. And everybody have hope, and right. Knowledge equals power. Power leads to action, and action leads to success.
Amen. I love that. Thank you so much,
Thank
Paisley.
you.
You have a great night. Take care. Okay.
You too.
Bye bye. All right, everybody, that was Paisley. What a great interview, and I'm so glad she could hang out longer with us tonight, getting us all set up for